Welcome very much to Conversation. A pleasure to welcome to the program Paul Westlake.
Westlake.
I'm
That's quite all right,
sorry, got trouble. He's a person who's a video, 25 years, I guess, in the media, video a good deal, and he's also an instructor in terms of teaching media. He's familiar with that, and he's also, we met at an event that was held at our house about Occupy Wall Street, move to amend, that kind of thing. And so he's interested in these kind of events, and so he's got a very interesting story. And Paul, welcome very much to Conversation.
It's a pleasure to be here, Harold. Thank you.
Share your background, please. Born and raised, educated. And
oh, boy.
Then, family a little bit, and then educated, and then we'll talk about the media and television, which you're very familiar with. But could you share your background, please?
Sure. I guess an easy place to start would be that the high school that I graduated from, Ossining High School in Westchester County in New York, was my 15th school.
15th, that's a lot. Some families moving around a lot.
Quite a bit.
Military?
And that's usually the next question,
Yeah.
and the answer is no. My parents divorced when I was very young, and my mother bounced around a lot. And I spent 1 year with my father in London, 10 different places in Los Angeles with my mother, and
moved 10 different places
in 10 years.
In 10 years, move a year. That's all.
I was at one school for 2 months. Up until the last school that I attended, I had never been at a single school for longer than a full year.
That was a very unusual thing. You have siblings or not, or just you and your mother?
It was me, my mother, and one older brother. I also have 4 other siblings. Drifting around out there.
Oh, it's pretty unusual. And
I'm sorry, 5 other siblings.
Yeah.
It's strange. Anyway.
But Los Angeles, so you were in Los Angeles. That's as a youngster, 5, 6 years old?
Right. I left L.A. at about 12, 13, moved back to the East Coast.
You moved around the L.A. basin all?
All of it, yeah.
Why? I don't mean to pry. It's none of my business. You tell me it's none of my... Why so much moving? I mean, was it...
I've often asked myself, yes, I think sometimes it was. I think sometimes my mother's eyes were bigger than her wallet. But I think she was just a restless soul. I think she was just that kind of a person.
She had a strong influence on your upbringing, your mother.
Well, certainly the bouncing around did.
Yeah. I mean, more so than your dad.
But interestingly, my father was always based on the East Coast, and he pretty much was very stable in his living environment. So even though I was bouncing around with my mother all of those, spring, winter, autumn, autumn, winter, spring, summers were with my father, and those were all on Fire Island, Fair Harbor Fire Island, South Shore of Long Island.
And that would be, I don't mean, again, to pry, would that have been an island of stability?
Absolutely. I consider that my hometown today because
it might be that those two things are an interesting mix to have in terms of an environmental, for a consciousness to be raised.
I have often told people that I was raised on both sides of the tracks.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
My mother was on welfare for a while. My father was never. He was always been. I wouldn't qualify him as necessarily 1%.
Was he a businessman?
He was an author.
Upper middle class or something, or what?
He was definitely upper middle.
Upper middle. Okay.
I don't know exactly, what range we want to put him in, but he was an author. He was a crime novelist, and he was
That's right. You told me on the phone.
And he was a Grand Master of the Mystery Writers Association.
Wow.
His name was Donald E. Westlake.
Okay.
And he's famous for the Dortmunder novels.
Okay.
Which there was a movie called Hot Rock with Robert Redford that was based on one of the Dortmunder books.
Okay. Okay.
And he also wrote under a pen name Richard Stark, which made a character Parker famous. No first name, just Parker.
Why a pen name, do you think?
Because he was too prolific. He wrote as many as 3 books a year.
Good grief.
He wrote 100 novels.
Wow. Wow, that's really a lot.
And all of it on a manual Smith Corona.
Yeah. Well, he could have been writing some of that probably when the computer is relatively recent.
Well, he tried, and here's the thing. He said 2 things about it. One, it's not fast enough for him.
Not fast enough as the Smith Corona. You mean he thought the Smith Corona was faster than the computer?
Because it's analog. It types what you hit. Right? Hit the button, it's on the page. You hit the button on a machine, and you're typing so fast, especially when the first machines came out, they couldn't keep up with him.
Now they do.
Now, maybe.
Yeah.
I still think he could type some of them.
Well,
but
yeah, but the key, there's a mechanical thing. He has to go up and hit the paper. It has to go. It's a mechanical thing. It's not instantaneous.
Absolutely. No, you're right. But what I'm saying is that the digital world of electrons passing through a machine, through multiple relays, et cetera, was actually he would type several paragraphs and sit back and wait for the machine, for the word processor to fill it in.
He's talking about word processor, not the typewriter.
No, yeah, the word processor.
Yeah,
so he tried briefly to go to a word processor.
That was a stage in development.
Sure,
yeah, right.
sure. And then he abandoned it.
Yeah, and that's one, abandoned that, go back to the
Smith Corona. And the other thing he said was that I need something that fightes back. And
okay, that little feedback.
Right,
yeah, I can understand. And he must get very used. He's written that much. I mean, that would be something where we've been at the typewriter all the time, typing and everything, and he could do it letter perfect almost. I wonder, you wouldn't have to do spell check. They used to have a thing called whiteout.
Oh yeah.
Remember whiteout?
He never used it.
Never used it.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't have to?
If it was a really egregious error, he'd just go back and X out the word. He didn't want to waste time with, because he was a very stream of consciousness writer, so he didn't want to waste a lot of time finding the correction tape and blah, blah. So if the word or the phrase or the sentence was very, very bad, it just didn't work out, he'd just go back and X over the whole thing and then continue on.
I see, yeah, okay, yeah, that's interesting. That's a really interesting story, because that's something that's come. I don't know when the typewriter came in. They used to call typewriter was the name of the person who would do it. That was job calling. Right. That was a job, like you got a bookkeeper and a typewriter. And that's where it came from, and that kind of stuff and everything. And the technology history of it's interesting. When did you get interested in, when you were being raised in that context and everything? University? Did you go to university and
New School University.
Where?
New School University is my alma mater in Lower Manhattan, 12th Street.
New School. I don't.
The New School
on 12th Ave.
Indeed, it's a larger thing now.
Yeah,
so
right,
Parsons and
Yeah.
But yeah, New School.
What did you study there?
I finished there with a liberal arts degree. I'd studied a lot of anthropology and history and things like that. I'd started as a music major at Mercy College and Westchester Conservatory. Yeah, I was a drummer and a composer. I was a composition major. Yeah.
Yeah, you had a very eclectic background in that.
A bit, yeah.
Yeah, and you were studying there, and that was your mother was with you then at the college time,
yes,
or had you come out of the nest, or what? Or
for that music phase, I was living in the same house with my mother, but I wasn't living in the same, because the house was a duplex and I lived downstairs with roommates in Westchester County at the time. But then when
that was in Austin.
That was when I was going to Mercy College for composition. That was right after I graduated from high school.
I see. You took a degree out of the New School?
And then I transferred after my third year, moved into New York City, and lost a lot of credits in the transfer, unfortunately.
Did you
it took me, because they're music credits, a lot of music credits, and they don't transfer over to liberal arts as well.
Isn't that interesting? That's really interesting to me. Yeah, right. Okay, yeah.
So I had to retake. I wound up taking a lot, probably 180 undergraduate credits, all told, by the time I got my degree.
It's interesting, that thing about the arts and that and everything like that. Okay, it's and then you're now involved. I know. Yeah, you're very much professionally involved in television production. You got involved in that. How did you get over into that?
I haven't actually worked for a television station in a long time, or really, since my work with the British Broadcasting Company in 2005 and 6, which was a wonderful experience.
In what capacity?
As a video journalist and trainer of new video journalists.
A video journalist.
Which is a sort of a one-man band journalism model. Right,
you were freelancing? Or
I was, in fact, yeah. I was hired by an American company to come over and work with the BBC.
To England, you mean?
Exactly, in Newcastle. It was wonderful.
That wasn't Channel 4 or something, or was it?
No, it's BBC. BBC One.
BBC One.
Yeah.
What would you be doing? You were a journalist? You were actually producing programs?
I produced a few things, and I did a lot of training. So what it was that this was a time frame where the way the British Broadcasting Company works is they're chartered by the British Parliament every 10 years.
Yeah.
And every 10 years when the Parliament does that, they either leave it the way it is or they add new rules. And in the charter prior to my coming over in 05-06, they had, which I think was in 2002, something like that, they had added some new rules. And one of them was that they sort of command performance, this is what BBC will do now. It was called the Local Initiative, because BBC is obviously the world service, very well known across the world, multi-language, incredible journalism, the whole thing.
Right.
But they felt, or the British people themselves felt that they'd sort of lost a connection to their own local version of the BBC. So Parliament, Parliament said you need to do local. You need to get more local, and BBC kind of struggled with that. They were so used to being up here that it was hard for them to come back down. So we came in and helped them. And I was kind of on the tail end of a larger...
We being part of a company or part of a group? Contract or something?
In a contract, exactly. I don't know if you've heard the name Michael Rosenblum.
It doesn't ring a bell.
He was a guy that was instrumental. I wouldn't say that he was the founder of, but instrumental in helping getting channels like New York One.
Oh yeah, that's going now solid,
Right. New York Times Television, which became Discovery Times. Oxygen, he's been involved with.
He was an entrepreneurially guy?
He's an entrepreneur guy, He had worked in journalism as a producer himself for the networks, you know, and then realized that this one-man band thing was happening, and took the bull by the horns and created his own little business model from it. He was the person that was contracted initially by the British Broadcasting Company to come over, and he brought me over.
He brought you over along with others, or you were...
Along with others. I worked with other Americans. I worked with...
A big team or not?
Half a dozen.
Half a dozen, okay.
Not a huge team.
And you must have done some training or some work or something other than music composition.
Oh, yeah.
Something that put you in a position to be able to fill that slot.
I spent 3 years with CNN as a moderator on their forum on CompuServe. I learned a lot of the ropes of journalism just being with them during that time. But I was home-based at the time.
Was that, you were 3 years with CNN in Atlanta? Or?
No, I was working, I was at home. This is also an interesting thing.
What year are you talking?
1994
to
1997.
That's back before 2005, okay.
So this is the early days of social media. This is the very early days of social media. So at the very beginning, we have ARPANET, then we have the internet, and before the World Wide Web, when we can get graphics and all that great stuff, we had this intermediary stage where we had three services. We had AOL, which is still around, which was known as the family-friendly service, right? That's good for kids. It's good for parents to be able to filter what the kids see, give them their own accounts, but they're not going to be assaulted by porn or anything like that. So AOL was good for families. There was another service called Prodigy, which just everybody hated. It lasted for a little while, but it was not a very well...
I do kind of remember
Prodigy was not
well, but okay.
It was not an intuitive program. It was not a very well-designed concept, and it just didn't last very long. And then the third one was CompuServe, and CompuServe was the sort of professional one, where AOL was catering to families, CompuServe was catering to businesses. So CompuServe had forums, and those forums were run by the companies that bought the forum from CompuServe. So CNN was one of those companies. They had bought a forum. They had their own forum within CompuServe, and that was sort of the beginning, along with AOL and Prodigy, of social media, of social networking.
Oh, well, that's interesting. That's but then you had CNN had been a television service. Ted Turner got started by 1980, and everything. Or TBS he had before that. So that was linking the cable television system and what you're talking about are computer programs.
Yes, but here's the thing.
The blending of those two things is something that's very much characteristic of the modern moment.
But we were the first.
You were the first.
And here's how we were the first.
What? The first.
The Talkback Live show that aired from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time during that time frame was the first live television show to air the back channel, as Jay Rosen from NYU would say. The back channel is the social media. Right?
You're off the page. I'm off the page with you on that. I don't understand what.
If you know about Twitter.
Well, I know there's something about 145. I've never used it.
Okay, or Facebook or something like that.
Facebook is huge. Okay, and I know it's called.
If there's a television,
and it seems to be separate from the internet.
No, it's on the internet.
Something that bypasses email.
It does bypass you. It's not email.
And I think it's. I find it as a great inconvenience because email is like you know, the post office. It is all one, and then you can have messages in, and it's very confusing, and it's youth.
Well, oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, and the brains restructure themselves as we introduce new technology.
Yeah, but you say that was there. You did. I hear you say 79.
No.
The CompuServe.
94 to 97.
90. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, that would be a little early in the 70s.
Yeah. 94. But and you called that the beginning of social media. I would like to get an idea of what we mean by social media. It's huge. You got this Twitter thing, you got Groupon now or something.
Well, Groupon's not really social media.
Okay. Social media is very important in terms of particularly Facebook. I used to be doing an IPO now or something and all that.
A very expensive
one. But
yeah.
I don't understand where it fits into, but this thing we were doing, Ted Turner, when he came and did TBS and everything, and also the linking of the satellite capability of taking multi-channel capacity in the cable universe is what was coming, and the computer was just beginning to come online. But we had film, Brady at the Civil War, and then we got electricity, and then we got all the other kind of media. Marshall McLuhan was really good talking about understanding media, and then we got down to where we had film, and then we got talking film, then we got color film, and then we got television, black and white.
Well, of course we got radio.
We had radio, of course. That was interesting. That came in, and that's where I was born into, that kind of a thing. And then we got into black and white television. We got into television over the air. It was all limited market, limited capacity in any one market because of the limitations of the physics of over-the-air broadcasting, and then there came cable, and that was television delivery, and the internet was a gleam in everybody's eye.
Right.
It was only just in the last eye blink that all of the technology stuff, or the things of the digital, was coming into being, and you're bridging over all of that with what your career or your view of the world, and also you're laying out of your own personal history.
Well, I wasn't there for the earliest stuff, but yeah,
right. I understand. No,
but yeah, no, I've been through, and the transition in the last 20 years has been
20. Okay,
has been remarkable.
Yeah,
really,
absolutely.
Right, you know.
Well, yeah, and it's getting even more so because things are moving past Moore's law. It's going exponential, and the bandwidth is coming in such Niagara and Iguazu combined proportions and so forth that everything is moving into a new pattern in terms of extended consciousness and technology.
Well, my understanding is that so far Moore's law has held true.
Yeah, well, it has.
For every system, it has held true. For the most part.
About 18 months, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah, that has. It has gone, but it's building exponential. It's going. It's not a logarithmic or hyperbolic.
No, because you're doubling it each time.
That's right, and it's going and it's going and it's going and it's going into a thing. One of the followers of that is Kurzweil, and he says singularity is near. The computing capability is going to exceed human intelligence. That's one of the things that's coming within just over the horizon, because that capability to manipulate information and so forth and mimic even biological processes is coming into what a lot of people think is just a whole new world that's coming because of our technological extensions. But social media, I don't know. It's something where people tell me, I had some bubble gum now, or it's a thing of the youth. And I don't.
Here's an easy way to think about it. If we use television, think of television, but use radio as an analogy, right?
Okay.
So television, radio is to television as CB radio is to social media.
What's CB?
CB, breaker, what's your 20?
Oh, like the trucker.
Citizens band, right?
Citizens band, okay.
Where they can talk to each other, right? So they're still using radio. It's radio waves.
Yeah.
And nobody else is listening. You can't tune it in on 101.1 FM.
Right.
But so it's not part of the mainstream media. Citizens band or ham, if you think of ham operators, right?
Yeah.
That's of social radio when you think about it, right?
Yeah,
so citizens band is social radio. They can talk to each other.
Okay.
If television is one way, it's a passive medium, right? Because nobody out there is going to come and talk to us in the middle of this after the taping, right? So, you know, this is a one-way medium, just the same way radio is a one-way medium. CB is a two-way medium who they can talk to, and that's what social media is. Social media is the two-way medium. But Twitter makes it the multi-way medium. It's not just two people talking
Twitter's
in one room.
beyond Facebook?
Twitter's a separate service from Facebook.
Separate in nature, separate in
completely different. Separate in nature, and yes, just a completely different. You know, where in Twitter you have you know the 140 character limit.
Yeah,
you mentioned it.
I had 144 is 12 times 12. I don't know if that had anything. I don't know how they came up with
I don't know how they did either.
12 times 12. 12 is a magic number in some people's thinking.
And 13 is in some others.
Yeah,
so, but your building doesn't have a 13th floor.
It's true. You're right. You were there the other night taking that good program with Dave.
You live on 12A.
Yeah, I know. That's the detritus of history, and we've been here 200,000 years.
Right.
And the pace of the change is now coming in a way that is qualitatively different than anything we can see in history. It's gone very, very slow. Took about 1,000 years to invent a tack in the old days. Now a revolution comes over the transom every day, and a great deal of that is in the technology of communication, which you're familiar with, and you actually teach and so forth, and have had a career building in there.
Well, I'm not familiar with the building of the new stuff, but I'm familiar with the using of the new stuff.
Okay.
You know, I'm not an engineer, but I am a technician.
Okay.
And I'm a teacher, and I'm a journalist, and you know.
You're doing journalism also.
A little bit, a little video journalism.
I heard you said you did some of that at CNN.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. So CNN was on CompuServe, which is a precursor to today's Twitter and Facebook and all of that.
CompuServe was?
CompuServe was, sure, because it was social media, because people could talk to each other. In this matrix, you know, here's a matrix that's built, and now in that matrix you can have conversations with each other.
Matrix is used as words for a movie too that has great implications sociologically and politically.
I don't know if I meant that on
You use
purpose.
that word. I don't know. Was that a cyber?
Might have been Freudian, right?
Not Freudian, cyber. What do you call it? Slip. Yeah.
Siberian.
The Siberian slip. You come up with a word. Yeah. But anyway, these things are coming so fast and everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any sense of where it's going, or where it's going? It's extending. They have cochlear implants now. People that couldn't hear can hear now, and the implications of the digital. It's digital as opposed to analog, and all of these things are coming at exponential, again, to underscore it, proportions. So the curve is going like this, and then it goes almost right like that.
And that's only from our perspective now.
It becomes L-shaped, yeah.
Right, you know, you go further, you go 100 years in the future, and where we are on the curve will actually be somewhere down here.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think William Gibson actually predicted it quite well in Neuromancer. When you think, I don't know if you know the book.
Will Gibson. No, I don't know.
But I think eventually we're not really there. We're close though. There are doctors who are working on implants that connect to the internet to monitor heart rate. So you have a device in your, you know, we're beginning in your body that sends information out to the net or to another handheld device that you can look at and monitor your own health when you have a severe problem of some kind or whatever.
Yeah, they had a thing in Nova last night about the genome. They're going to be able to get the genome. They have to get the price down, but they're getting down to where they can you see a genetic predisposition for all kinds. So everything is galloping at an increasing pace, and it's all interrelated, and they all have interrelation, and so the transformation. And one of the unique things of the Homo sapiens species is that ability we have to project our consciousness or our inner given neural net or neural system into the environment through the use of what they call tools or technology. I don't know if there's other creatures that can. I guess birds make nests. Beavers make dams. You know, make some difference.
Great apes use twigs to pull ants out. You know, there's tool thinking out there.
But there's a unique quality of us being able to do that, and that's coming to some sort of a qualitative transformation, because that builds things like buildings, roads, these kind of things, are all extensions of our manipulating the outer environment rather than encountering as in nature as a given.
Well, and to control nature, to protect ourselves, of course, but also as an extension of our senses.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, right. The senses, and those are extensions, I guess, of our mental process.
Right.
Unique in the evolutionary process. We can put our evolutionary context in understanding a couple 100,000 years ago, we evolved up the hominoid line, and we're here. And are we coming to the end of that? Are the extensions of these technological systems, the technology is more important to transformative aspects of the human society or the larger ecological context ever more all the time. And it's also getting down to where when you think the microchip, my Lord, they had the I had friends who were in the business. They had a room this size with vacuum tubes to get 1 megabyte of memory in the early days. It's just going so slow, Babbage and all. And they had slow. Now it's going. We're going to have a carbon-60. We're going to have a thing that will be an information manipulation system that will go through the bloodstream, breaking, the semi-permeable barrier between the cells of the organism. So small and yet so powerful. We're doing so much more with less.
Exactly.
It's getting down to where it's microscopic.
Now people are swallowing cameras instead of getting surgery.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So these are incredible things. And then we also have the ability to build institutions. We have buildings. We have railroads. We have roads. We have, and then one of the leading edges of that is to build weapon systems that give one political advantage to a group over another, and those weapon systems have been growing exponentially in their power. Have they not?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you think there's species?
Not only weapon systems, but crowd control systems, like the new microwave truck. I don't know what they call it exactly, but it's a focused microwave weapon.
Yeah.
And I think microwave is a misnomer. I think they use a different type of wave, a long wave of some kind.
Weapons.
Right.
I've heard of wave weapons.
Right, and it's just to heat up the surface of the skin and disrupt, riots and things like that. Right.
Yeah, taser and fate. Don't. Anyway, but the point is, they've also built up intellectually. Because we were 100 and 200,000 years, we were in nature. Until civilization, we learned agriculture, we got civilization, we got surplus and everything. And so now it's gone 10,000 generations, and we got to the point where the weapon systems that gave advantage in a world where political institutions, we're going to get to Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street, where we met yesterday and so on. But anyway, it's getting to be where you get a power structure that has weapons, and the rule that, geopolitical rule of the relationship between the peoples of the world has been whoever's got the weapon system can conquer the other.
But it's still
that gave them an advantage, so they could make their tribe strong.
Sure.
And if you got the weapon, you impose your rule, your ideas, your nomenclature, and your institutional structure that is called historically legitimate.
But when you bring up Occupy, where they have it right,
we're finally getting there. Yeah,
is that it's still the golden rule? He who has the gold makes the weapons.
No, who makes the gold makes the weapons, but who makes the weapons has the power.
Sure, but the guy with the gold is the one who controls who uses the weapon.
Yeah, okay. But what it does to come down to, rather than something, let's say, we do have also certain kinds of things like empathy. We have a thing called love.
Sure.
We have a thing about concern for others, concern with the least among us. All of these other kinds of aspects of our consciousness that are part of our thinking and our intuiting or feeling and everything. But the thing that really rules in a geopolitical sense is guns.
Yeah.
It's conquer. And that idea that we came to this continent, the Europeans came at a technologically advanced, and we conquered the indigenous people. We went and conquered people and turned them into slaves. That happened under Rome. It's happened, and throughout all of history, what it is, Mao said, power comes out at the end of a gun. Whoever's got the rules, who can conquer and berate and intimidate and co-opt and all the rest of it, the masses of the people will rule and set up their rule, and they will benefit, and it still holds. Does it not? In terms of the
think that there are moments
of the world, hence Occupy, 199.
I think there are moments of time in history where the gun is no longer powerful enough to shoot everybody that's arrayed against it.
Well, wait a minute, if you could extend that, if I could, just the metaphor a little bit, those weapon systems became more and more effective through time. That's one of the events. You got better, and then you get intellectuals coming along like Mr. Einstein with special theory, and you get a thing where you can break the atom, and you can get the nuclear teller, you get that, and you get weapon systems that have, from modeling, I wonder, just you're young, modeling shows that those weapon systems finally Unlike as recently as the Second World War, we were impotent at a species level. After about 1970, the weapon systems collectively are, if they were to be unleashed in a spasm of irrational hatred, which is also part of the human context and its extended technology, if they were to be unleashed, like say there's talk now that Israel's going to go and drop some atomic bombs on Iran.
I don't know about atomic.
Then, well, no, I know. Yeah, but that's assuming some rational. You're assuming some not rational. It wouldn't be something if there was an unleashing, it would have to mean the unleashing of the weapons of the United States of America, superpower that runs the world. And their model runs it. If it was to be unleashed, it apparently would, from about 1970 and still holds, eliminate the entire Homo sapiens species from this planet. Do you think that's possibly the case? An existential new reality that has come out of our extended consciousness and universe only within about the last 40 years?
To ultimately wipe ourselves out?
No, wipe out the Homo sapiens species, not life, but the Homo sapiens species. Modeling is, we were grown up with that, is that is the case. That's an existential new reality on the destructive side of extended consciousness. Do you think that's the case, or do you think there would be some? We could destroy civilization.
We could easily destroy civilization.
Yeah, okay,
I don't know if we could wipe out every pocket of humanity.
There is modeling that shows that they could.
You know,
and they've got wave weapons, and they got germ weapons, and they got other weapon systems that give them the advantage of the 1%.
But they also have to know that there are people there to kill. And I'm not sure that you're going to find...
Yeah, but you're trying to go... You're young and everything, I understand. I hope you can keep it. You're trying to be rational. You're not talking... You're talking about guns of August.
No, what I'm talking about is Papua New Guinea, you know?
Yeah.
That's...
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
that's somewhere in the deep, dark... You know, the Yanomamo tribe in Brazil. You know, somewhere in the deep, darkest jungles, they're going to overlook someone. There's no perfect system. If the idea was, you know...
Oh, so you argue with the premise.
The existential moment is to say that our next step in evolution is to destroy ourselves or to destroy the Homo sapiens species. They're not going to get to everybody.
That's not the point that would be brought up.
I mean, it would be in mass hysteria, obviously. But
well, it would have nothing to do with rational.
Right.
It would be... we no longer can take it, so we're going to do it, and then that sets off this. And then this alliance kicks in, and then this one kicks in, and then this, and then it would evolve. Now,
you still would wind up, I think,
the point is
with a few people out there.
Okay, you want to think that the premise does not hold, that it would. There's modeling that says that it would destroy the condition, not only within, because of, it's a capability. We certainly, as recently as the Second World War, we could not do that no matter how hard we tried. We were impotent. We were gestating. Do you understand? Okay? And then we got somewhere, the point is that somewhere along that line, we crossed an existential new reality in terms of evolution of consciousness in the universe.
And we became the most powerful force.
No, the most,
you know, the most powerful mammal anyway, because certainly the universe is still the most powerful force. But yes, we became capable of destroying ourselves and much of the life on this planet.
Well, wait a minute, but it's within the eye blink. And what you're trying to get at is, this is not your normal time. What you're saying, this is not your normal time. This is a time of qualitative transformation in the evolution of events, including the evolution of the effects of the extended consciousness of evolution. You understand?
Yeah. I don't know if we know what this time is yet. I think I think this time is still in its gestational phase.
Well, all right. But then also, I'd like to posit, if I could, because you understand it and all. You were at an Occupy thing, after all. Something. Jarrett was here earlier. We were talking with him. Something's motivating people in the world that there's something wrong, or there's something new needed, okay? And that's what's there. And the positive side of that same equation of the destruction, you make the point about the destruction in order to make it the averse, the positive capability. There may be a positive transformative reality of extended consciousness that when you get to be, we may actually, it begins to be summed up. They're starting to look in the literature and so forth, they're starting to use the word neo-humanism. That is neo, like Neolithic, new.
Right.
There's a new something above the normally accepted idea of history.
To raise our condition, to achieve a higher sense of what our purpose is together.
be, like back to evolution, we may be transcending the Homo sapien experience, and we're going through it wide awake. We're going through the end of the gestating period of Homo sapien, and we're going to come into a new relationship in the universe, if a liberated condition, rather than one in which humanity, by and large, has been enslaved by the power structure du jour.
I think that is absolutely the crux of what you're. But that last bit is that's it. You know, are we going to come into it liberated, or are the forces that do still control this world going to prevent that from happening? If it is in fact happening,
it is,
and it seems like it is.
It is.
You know, when you look at the Arab Spring and you look at Occupy and all these things, it certainly seems like it is.
So that's what you're. It's not a political thing like the Democrats and Republicans or a quarter-point crime rate.
No, it's a consciousness thing.
It is a thing that's going on, and in gestation, if you see it in a gestation way, it's 9 months in a human being. It's not 6. It's not 20. It's to 9 months. Then there's a qualitative trend. We've been gestating for 200,000 years, and we're coming to a point of, if we make it, if we get good design, if we get a good, where everybody is able to be, rather than enslaved, as so many people have to feel on a world scale now, it's so unjust in terms of all the power and all the capability and the political power and so forth, and in the hands of a few. They want to reify those institutions, reestablish them. They don't want any of this talk about how we need something new. We've got the power, do what you're told. All these institutions were formulated within a condition of scarcity. There wasn't enough. We're now coming to a time transcending material scarcity as an ontologic reality.
Right.
Do you understand?
Sure.
So that's a qualitative transformation that is never spoke.
I think
you never hear it.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think the question we have to ask ourselves
is trying to bring us
is this truly global?
Okay. No, because it's cosmic.
But obviously, but what I'm saying is it being felt on a global scale?
Yes, I think it is.
Because one of the things I think we've seen periods like this in isolation in history, where
I would submit there's no where to go historically.
No, I'm just saying in leaps in public consciousness. For the French Revolution is a simple, where they had seen an example, you know, an example across the ocean of what people could do when they throw off power. And that led to an existential moment where they said, wait a second, what are we dealing with here? Now, it's on a much lower scale than what they're talking about. Of course.
But we're going to go back
to... Are we really in the grand scale that you're suggesting? Well, my question.
Well, that's what I'm bringing up. I think that's what it is. Jared was here trying to articulate what the feeling is. It's a feeling of qualitative, liberating, not the French Revolution overcoming, or the American Scottish Enlightenment overcoming feudalism, feudalism overcoming Rome, Rome overcoming Nebuchadnezzar, and the whole... James Joyce said history is a nightmare, one could add, of injustice from which we're trying to awaken. We may be at the awakening moment if we get to the point where, if you begin to realize that it may be that the whole, an operating manual, you're in technology. If you get a new technology, a piece of technology, you get what is called an operating manual. We have Bucky Fuller called it an operating manual for Spaceship Earth. We don't have one.
Nope.
We're just flying by the seat of our pants, and we don't have a thing that's taking into account the future, which is becoming very rapidly just over the doorstep. The future is catching up with us, and we're just reestablishing outdated institutions, power structures, and we'll go back to the Constitution of the United States. And then we'll go to our creation stories about God for our tribe. And everything is outdated, including the spiritual.
You just brought me right to what I was going to say, is that consistently all of these things are the enemy of science.
Well, science and the Enlightenment, and that,
So I think to some degree we would have an instruction, an operator's manual for Earth if we listen to our science community.
No,
if we actually,
you think so? You think
I don't mean everybody. I don't mean that everybody is always going to be right, but that we devalue, that we even have an argument in America right now.
About what?
About whether or not, you know, healthcare, certain things that are obvious, things that if I'm going to argue with Rick Santorum about birth control,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I would be in an adult conversation.
Right,
you know
right.
what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So this is what I said.
Yeah, but that's
things that
going
adults
on.
have figured out.
Yeah, but
and we
that's-
still have children out there who are the enemies of science, and I think that's...
Children are the enemy of science. What do you mean?
I mean children like Santorum. I mean children like, people who never really grew up.
Well, okay, if you want
I
to...
honestly think
but
that there are a lot of
taking it
people out
back
there who
in-
never really grew
I
up.
can understand it's very comfortable to take it back into the normally perceived Nash and all the...
Well, just to
critics
get it
and all
into a
this
thing
and
that's
everything.
good, an example.
What I'm trying to get it into is something new, particularly since you're on the cutting edge of understanding.
Well, what I'm
in a
saying is that
technical
those
way.
guys don't want it.
Well, now, I would say that the main problem would be, did you hear what I said? Or did anybody hear what I said? Does anybody ever hear, do you ever hear anybody say, the definition, dictionary, politics is all informed by economics. You have economic theorizing. Yeah? And the definition of economics, the study, it is the science of the they want to try and make it a science, it's not. But
It's a very soft one if it is.
Yeah. But the study of the allocation of scarce resources.
Right.
This side I said we could destroy. This side we said we may have transcended scarcity in the design.
Oh, we absolutely have.
No,
yes.
wait a minute. Don't
I'm
say
sorry.
it.
Go ahead.
Don't say it in an ontologic sense.
We have transcended scarcity.
But everything is predicated within a context historically of scarcity. We have to allocate scarcity. Have you ever heard anybody realize and put forth the idea we may have collectively, in the design sense and an ontologic sense, transcended for the human species and the ecology the ironclad laws of scarcity, the principle upon which all of our outdated institutions was based, and it's never mentioned.
Yes, and not
Is
only...
it ever mentioned?
I don't... Well,
Okay.
a few people do. A few people do.
Where?
And those people are called crazy.
Okay, yeah, all right, yeah.
Because they're talking
Or they
about...
called Occupy Wall Street
Possibly,
wannabe.
right? You know,
That's
right.
what I'm saying. Is
Sure.
That transformation, never spoken,
Nope.
never can't be brought up. For me to win, you have to lose. I'm going to beat you down. I'm going to make you do the oppression and all that. The
Sure.
rest of it. If there's enough, if there's a voice, there is enough. Finally.
Right.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Evolutionarily,
Yes.
never voiced in
Never.
the scientific or reasonably
There are people who
agreeable
believe we reached
or
that point.
ascertainable to the consciousness of the people, and I think it's out of that angst that is coming the Occupy. And I can say to people, I'm older now, I'm happy I lived long enough to see this thing trying to be done in a way that's systems, taking in the whole understanding of everything in a systems critical thinking way. And we have that and it's the intellectuals that are falling down on the job. There's no intellectual.
They're pretty cowed right now, though,
Well,
when
they're
you think about it.
or they're co-opted. They want to get a grant.
There's that, too.
You got to get a grant in order to get their new research project, to
Sure.
get their accelerator going, or whatever. They're all cowed by specialization. There's no customs thinking. There's no
And the
system.
compartmentalization prevents them from seeing the big picture.
Divide and conquer happens
Absolutely.
with tribes. It happens with intellectuals. You
Sure.
can divide and conquer and get them so specialized out on one thing. Nobody's thinking about or presenting the whole.
And you just described a typical corporation.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, or education.
And that's why they can be so unthinking.
Educational institutions are now all specialized.
Sure.
That's the avenue toward, what I'm trying to say is...
We need more generalists.
We need, not, generalist is a term.
I know, it's not a term that
I
a lot of
did
people
my
like.
doctorate in geography because I wanted to be interested in everything. You had Bucky Fuller. Were you familiar with him?
Little bit.
Is the youth familiar with Bucky Fuller?
I would say not.
You're young. They should be. They really should be that. Isaac Asimov. There's some other comprehensive people, Toynbee, intellectual, there's some. But there was a time when those things would be not specialized. Now they've specialized it all out. Everything is specialized out. You become a PhD in the use of the pluperfect tense in southeast section of one of the provinces of France. You know all about it. And you never then think about
Lovely.
anything else.
That's true.
Or pattern recognizing.
Right,
in
and if you're not
computers, right?
recognizing pattern, how are you even being good in your own discipline?
Well, they'll say jack of all trades, master of none. They don't even have geography. You could get away with it because it's so inclusive. You can be a economic, political, or whatever. you know, of the world and everything, a little bit limited in cosmology and so, but it's okay. They don't even have it at the major schools now. It's all, you know, business, accounting, or it's all specialization, and who has to bother with geography? But I think it's really important.
Well, it treats human beings, obviously, like machines, right? I need a human machine that is educated in this specific narrow set to plug into this function. Right, it's very militaristic.
Is it not?
Absolutely.
Now,
but I think there are people, and I'm pretty sure that there are a few of these people who are out there talking about this in social media, on YouTube, and places like that.
Who people are talking on what?
That we overcame the law of scarcity a long time ago.
Who, where?
A guy that comes to mind is Bill Still, who did The Secrets of Oz about, you know, debt-backed currency. He has a video out on YouTube about this stuff.
Okay, do me a favor. Send me, will you do this?
Sure.
Okay, you got my email?
Absolutely.
Send me links to people who are taking a comprehensive systems understanding.
I have two that I'll send to you tonight.
We had Isaac Asimov. He passed and everything. He said this is the defining generation in a cosmic sense, not historical, not political, not the good guys against the bad guys, but a cosmic sense. And Fuller was about as good as they've come. Marshall McLuhan, James Joyce read very, very well the implications of extended tech. The thunders were the electricity.
Well, here's
the things are coming exponentially.
Sure.
The technology.
But here's the thing: as well as we in the, you know, if we could just use Occupy terminology in the 99%, as well as we are able to recognize pattern, and as well as we are able to, with the Asimovs of the world, perhaps say maybe we are going into this phase. Think about the people who have the control. Think about the people who have the resources for pattern recognition paid for. Well, they can pay to have a PhD, or 12 PhDs, or 30 PhDs, do pattern recognition for them, so they can see the revolution coming.
Yeah.
What do we do in that circumstance? So you're right. We could be in that threshold phase, but do we think they're not going to fight back? And do we think they're not already?
I still think it's not the fault of the people that are in the top of the thing with the military and all of that.
I'm not suggesting any one of them, that they're all a giant conspiracy.
No,
I'm just saying that
it's not a conspiracy.
Declaration of Independence. They're accustomed to the form, and they're not willing to abolish it.
Well, okay, but it isn't going to come. I mean, Louis XIV, you know, the dynastic states didn't all of a sudden come. Were able to encompass this kind of thing, Enlightenment thinking that's coming and everything. They had the divine right. They had the divine right to rule. They had the historical legitimacy.
Some of them still do.
Think that. But you don't expect the people that are in those positions, military or otherwise, or even political or corporate, to be able to do anything other than understand this is the basis for our legitimately asserting our authority. You wouldn't blame a tiger or a lion for eating an antelope.
No.
That's their nature.
But are we suggesting that it is the nature of certain human beings to be predators of their own kind?
Yeah, I would suggest.
Is that a nature that we should encourage?
No, I don't know that it is. It's there because they will encourage it with their use of all the media and buying off people and everybody being sycophant to them, because it's like a courtiers in a feudal thing.
So if
your dad could do wonders with a novel around that thing. But the thing is, the idea of taking it into that larger realm is the tradition. That's the work of the intellectuals, not the political class, the intellectuals. And they are falling down on the job. They're either saying, well, it's Karl Marx, or it's off on something, or they haven't come up with an alternative understanding with policy suggestions that have meaning to enough people to get to. It's the intellectual.
Or they are
progressive.
Or perhaps they are coming up with that stuff, but they're not giving it to us.
No.
They're giving it to the people who are paying them for it.
Well, if they would, that would be collaborating with the enemy. They could do that. They do. That's the way probably people have done.
I mean, if there's a side of the human condition that's willing to be a predator of its own kind, then there has to be a side of the human condition that, recognizing that, would rather be with the winning team.
Well, everybody wants to be with the winning team if they can. After all, 99.99999% of the species ever existed have gone extinct. So they want to be extinct, and you got all this and everything. You got all kinds of rationales for the term in the popular culture, suck up to.
Right.
those who got the money. And the only thing that matters now is money.
Right.
In people's minds, and so much of the thing, it's not those people that you blame.
No.
In my thinking, it's the intellectuals.
Well,
the comprehensivists, the leftists. They're not.
I agree to a degree.
They're not coming up with anything other than, well, let's see, let's just do away with the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
Let's do away with the private property.
Piecemeal is not, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. Right.
Thinking.
And honestly.
Comprehensively. And so it's the intellectuals who should be blamed. The progressive intellectuals should be blamed for not coming up with analysis that is relevant to bringing about the kind of change that the Occupy movement's trying to get to come out of the human experience.
I think there is actually a remedy in Republican democracy, because I don't necessarily think that, I do believe what Winston Churchill said.
What's that? He said, democracy
is the worst form of government except for all the others.
Well, democracy is okay, go on, yeah.
So, and if we look at Occupy Wall Street right now, we take the New York City, only the one, that one time at the Move to Amend, which was organized by Jarrett, who you were speaking with, and as an Occupy event. That was my first time at an Occupy-related event.
I thought you were one of the
I'm a Move to Amend guy.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to whack the mic. I'm a Move to Amend guy, right? So I'm working with with David Cobb and the Abolish Corporate Personhood Now group, and because of my media training and background, and my father, my father being who he is, and having no, he passed away in 2008.
Sorry.
It would have been, he's a great guy.
Mother
passed away much before that, so I'm an orphan now.
Yeah, an orphan. Orphan of the storm.
Indeed, aren't we all? But, sorry, what was my train of thought?
You were talking about Cobb. And
move to a right. So if Occupy, if Occupy is, and I've been hearing this, an anarchist movement.
Well, okay, there's a proud tradition there.
Sure. Problem is, we all know, those of us who have spent any time really paying attention to what it is, know that it's not workable. That it really is, it's a lack of anything. It's a lack of structure. And somebody has to figure out how to handle the sewage system. Somebody has to figure out how to build the bridge across the Hudson River.
I'm not so sure.
I'm not sure anarchy can ever achieve those things.
in Spain is really moving now and is coming to this country, and that's a cooperative thing, goes back to the
well, cooperative, fine, but but if it's cooperative, it means that somebody is being assigned to the task. At that moment, they are being empowered. That's essentially Republican democracy. So it's not really anarchy. Even the anarchists who are trying to say this is our collective way of doing things are essentially mimicking on a much wider, more horizontal level, but it's still essentially mimicking a Republican form of democracy.
So where do we go? What's to be done? What's the story,
I think the intellectuals are falling down on defending Republican democracy.
Republican democracy,
which is representative. It can't be. Look, if we tried to have 300 million people at a constitutional convention to rewrite the Constitution, we would wind up with the worst-looking duck-billed platypus ever. We know this, right? It can't. Unless we're all reading each other's minds.
Well, we may be
right.
There.
If that's the cosmic shift, right?
Maybe.
If that becomes the cosmic shift, then anarchy becomes easy, right? Because we all know who the criminal's going to be.
Let me throw something out in terms of nature. There's 100 trillion. Do you know that in the human organism, there's about 100 trillion cells in the human organism, and they all work as a system. You have a pancreas cell, you have a this and that, you have this. They all work as a system. They all need oxygen.
And they're not all mission critical.
They're not. What does that mean, mission critical?
You could lose your heart and you're dead. You could lose a kidney and live. They're not all mission critical.
Well, that's interesting in and of itself. But the fact that they have a system,
sure.
or Lovelock looking Gaia, he begins to draw away and he sees the Earth as an organism in universe or something. And the second law of is confusing because we don't know where the accelerator, isn't it being fired up again out at CERN, and whether or not this is a closed or open system. String theory, you just get special theory and then you get quantum mechanics and then they come up with string theory, Brian Lamb and Kaku, and there may be parallel universes. The second law of thermodynamics may not hold, that all systems move toward entropy to the limits. So we don't know if it's a closed or open. It's up for grabs.
I'm going to make a radical posit here, though.
Do.
I believe that Einstein got something wrong.
I'm shocked.
Right?
Shocked.
Right. for all of this time, quantum mechanics, theory of locality, whatever you're talking about, has based itself on the Einsteinian theory that light is the constant. Light is the unchanging force to all observers in all directions at all speeds. I think and that would mean that time is the thing that dilates, right? So as you increase in speed, you dilate time. I think he had that backwards. I think the actual truth of the universe is that time never changes. Time is not something that you can manipulate. Time is just the measure of whether the grass is growing, right? If there's no grass growing and you're in a dark room and with no light and with no way to note the passage of time, time would cease to exist for you after a while. But light is the variable. Light must be the variable because all other waveforms in this universe are variables, right? So light, even though it's a very peculiar thing, the particle wave, it acts like a wave when you want it to act like a particle, it acts like a particle when you want it to act like a wave, it's still a variable. And time is the thing that will never change.
So what's the implication of that in terms of
we'll have a massive revolution in physics when the models that we're basing our new physics on understand that time is not the thing that dilates.
Are you talking about string theory?
I'm talking, I don't know, because I'm not, I'm a physics 101 guy. Like, I know enough about it, but I'm not up at those guys' levels. But I've done enough study on this, and just intuitively, I think that light must be a variable. It must be a variable, and it's not. See, here's the thing. Electromagnetism and time and light can all influence, as you know, everything is connected, right? So if you take an atomic clock and you put it up in orbit around Earth, it might slow down, but that doesn't mean that it's slowing down for the same reason. So there are more things for the reason that you think. So there are more things yet to study and figure out. And I think we need to get beyond the electromagnetic field that is our sun. Forget the Earth. We need to get out beyond the Oort cloud. We need to have a point of reference from outside this system.
This whole solar system?
This whole solar system. Before we can start to understand the lensing effect that we have been in within our own system. We are living inside a lens, like your glasses, right inside that lens.
Really?
Right?
Okay.
The edge of the sun's magnetic field is the Oort cloud, where,
that's what I was going to ask you what that was. Okay,
and we're all particles and wave forces and chunks of material wind up getting caught in this incredibly turbulent zone between the edge of the sun's magnetic field and open space. And we haven't really penetrated that except with, I don't even know if Voyager has made it there, Voyager 1. I'm not sure. Maybe it has.
Is that the one where out past Pluto?
Right. It's gone. That sucker's gone, right? But I don't know if it's made it past there, and even if it has, I don't know if the information we're getting from it is reliable because we're still inside the lens. So we need to start figuring out how to triangulate from outside the lens in order to observe the system that we're really in, and then our physics will take an exponential leap.
Wow, that's something. I know they had this Lisa, because that's my daughter's name, and they have it's coming out of, what do you call the accelerator at CERN.
CERN, right.
They have a telescope already, Lisa. They had they have the W map now, where they can take a picture of the shock wave of Big Bang within 300,000 years of its occurrence, 13.7 billion years ago. Liza they haven't got it finally financed or something but they were going to take a picture of that shock wave 1 nanosecond after its occurrence 13.7 billion years ago, which it's in place. The financing's there, but it has to be done. But within 1 nanosecond of its occurrence. That's a hell of a ability to take the measure of things by intellectual capability. But anyway, all of these things are up for grabs, and one of the problems we have is time. And one of the problems with time is when you're doing a television program, you run out of it.
Yeah, it happens.
We've run out. It's a pleasure.
Harold, it's wonderful talking to you.
Paul Westlake, and he's, as you can see, a abolished corporate personhood now, and also
which we didn't even get to.
We didn't get to. Well, we did. We kind of talked about it. We talked. Things all interrelate, like the 100 trillion cells in the human organism. They all interrelate in some systems way. If we can get to that, so it's a great challenge to be living in these these times, and thanks a lot for contributing. Thank you for viewing. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. That's it for now. Thanks again, Paul, for coming in. Let's be in touch.
My pleasure.
I want to get those links to those